Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm Owlandgator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 86. Today is Wednesday, July 1st, 2026. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, sometimes about what I'm reading and watching and life thrown in. It's been a little bit over a month since my last video, so thank you to everyone, whether you're a returning subscriber or a new viewer. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with me in my stitching, and a special thank you to all of you who like the video, leave comments. I know sometimes it can be a little bit of a pain, especially if you're watching on the TV. It means you have to stop and go to your phone or whatever. But I really do appreciate it. I love sharing my stitching and interacting with all of you. It makes doing this so much fun. So I've had a really good stitching month. Not as many stitches as I want, but I did manage to hit all the goals I wanted to hit. I did take a vacation for a week, which I'll talk more about at the end, which did really dip my numbers down quite a bit because I didn't have a lot of stitching time but that was okay. So I am just going to jump in and show you what I've been working on. And as always, I do play a lot of stitching games, and one game in particular really sort of helped inform my choices this month. And so I will talk about it as I go along. But first and foremost, oh, my English is hard today. I want to show you some small finishes that I had. I finished some of these over the course of a few months, and I just realized I had never shown them. So I am going to several retreats this year. I do enjoy participating in the Smalls Exchange, and so of course, now I've hidden away two of them. So I'm just going to show you the most recent one I worked on this month. And this is the most recent one that I worked on. So I pulled this from the Owl Forest Embroidery 100 Owls. I love that pattern, but there was a realization that I was never going to stitch that whole piece. Nothing against it. It was just there was so many things I want to stitch and not enough time. But so what I did was I pulled out three of the main motifs and did them, and this is one of them. So this is I believe it's a 14 count sort of cream colored Ada, just off. I picked up at a freebie table. You can tell someone who wasn't me cut a chunk out of it, which was fine. It was perfect size for this, and so I need to obviously to uh, to fully finish this into something. I'll probably do it either as a flat fold or just a little ornament or something. It's actually quite big, uh, bigger than I would have thought, probably because this is a 14 count, but that's okay. Um, and this is the one that I took on my vacation, so I started it while I was traveling and didn't get it done, so I finished it when I came home. I will say, as I was stitching this, as I'm sure you're aware, Owl Forest Embroidery has beautifully, highly variegated flosses, and so it's very hard to do a DMC conversion. And because I took this on the trip, I just pulled what was called for, and I wasn't really paying attention. Don't necessarily love the colors on this, but the way they go together. But overall, I think in the end it's okay. But had I been home, I probably would have not gone with her called for. And I was sort of giggling because Laura, Stitching by the Shore, is also working on an Owl Forest embroidery, not this one, a different one. And she was talking about, well, they give you a guide on what the recommended DMC is. But the reality is it's not a great match simply because their flosses are so variegated. So, but anyhow, I had fun doing this. I'm glad I decided to sort of do that. And I just realized the reason why I don't have it in here is because I pulled them out before I went on my vacation. So they're somewhere safe. And where that somewhere safe is, I need to figure out. But they did not get on a plane with me. I was trying really hard to minimize how much I had to carry. Okay, so because I did not finish, I filmed or recorded not at the very end of May, but a few days before the end of May. I knew I had a really intense stitching game that weekend, and so I didn't want to take time for recording, but I did actually stitch a lot as a result of that. And so a few pieces that I may have shown last month, but I got a lot more work in them. So I'm just going to go ahead and show those now. So the first one is from Fine Frog Stitching. This is Oak Keeper. And here is where I got to. And this is also on, I think it's either a 16 or 18 count Ada. Again, probably something I picked up at a freebie table. So looking good. Next time I get back to this, I am going to do that eye and that fox because it looks a little bit creepy. Also, I was missing one of the DMC colors, which I now have, 166, which is sort of a lime green color. So that also will help me fill in some of that leaf what is missing. But so much fun stitching on this. Okay, and another piece, another piece that I also picked up towards the end of the month because I knew it was going to go really fast. Excuse the crinkling noise. This one is actually in just a Ziploc bag, so it's a little bit crinkly. This has got a very complicated name, Winter Snowflake Reading Haven. Artwork by Rose Catherine Kahn, charted by Pain Free Crafts. I'm doing it because you can kind of see there's a tortoiseshell kitty, and I have a tortoiseshell kitty, and this was like one of the first times I'd ever seen a tortoiseshell anywhere in full coverage stitching. So I wanted to make sure my kitty, because my other kitty is a tabby, and there's plenty of tabby cats. So this I'm doing on a 22 count hardanger, and I started in the bottom left hand corner, and this was a new start last month, so really not that exciting, too much to see. But I got over 1,000 stitches since my last video, so I just wanted to go ahead and show that to you. Okay, and then the next one, again, I know I showed this to you a little bit that I did last month, baby animals. Just love this from the Blue Flower. It's absolutely stunning and gorgeous. And I am doing this on a 32 count even weave color lamb's wool. And I know I put in about 1,000 stitches after I showed this to you last time, so I wanted to show it again. So I got basically the capybara family done. There's a little bit more. I need some legs at the bottom there, and finish that tree. A little bit of grass under that capybara. So a lot of fun working on this. It's one, and I had some vision last year when I started this that, oh, I'll just do like one animal family a month and then I can get it done pretty quickly. And no, that's, I could get it done that way, but then that would mean all my other stitching would have to go to the wayside, and that's not how I roll. So, but I do love this. And look at those little baby capybaras. They're so cute. And the mommy panther and the baby panther up in the tree. And this is one of I have 26 projects. I'm trying to get 26 stitches in, and this is one of the projects. So it will come out. I am about 500 stitches short of hitting that goal. Okay, the next one I pulled out, I'm pretty sure I did this in, for the Full Coverage Fanatics Bingo. And it's also one of the projects I want to get 2,000 stitches on. And it's Little Cake Shop. And my cover page just is not looking very happy right now, but it's okay. It's just a computer printout. So this is Little Cake Shop, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Amy Stewart. This is the regular size, but max color. And I originally started like over here and did a lot and went pretty far down, and then I decided just to go across, basically page by page across the top. I'm like 9.5% or something. I'm still in that ceiling. So Siska Stitches is also doing this image. I don't think she's doing this version. She may be doing the supersize max color. I don't know, but she was much wiser than I was, and she's, I think, put it in markup, and she's somehow angled it so that she can stitch the way that she is comfortable, but she's going, I think, from like basically in the image, the bottom right up, but that's not the way she's stitching it. And so she's getting a lot more variety, because when you see what I'm doing, and it's just, so basically one page is sealing all the way across. So here is where I am, and I'm not even sure that I'm halfway done with that sealing all the way across. So here's where I am. You can see out there I did go, that's probably about 2 pages down. But went across, did all of that. So not super exciting. Obviously background needs to be done. But I kind of do like doing the background sometimes in advance, or not in advance, but first, because then you get to have all the fun with the with the stuff in the image. I probably will be maybe one day regretting it with this one, simply because because it's supersized max color. When you get to all the fun stuff, there's going to be a lot of confetti, and right now there's a little bit of confetti in the ceiling, but it's also a lot of block stitching. Okay, and then the next piece I have to show you that my last piece I worked on in May, and this was a one of my Whip Go draws from May that I hadn't done before my last video. I think you're all familiar with this. This is His Eye is on the Sparrow by Heartstring Samplery. She's come out with another similar one, which is the third one, which I cannot remember the name of it. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love the colors in that, but given I'm not very far in this one, I've decided I'm right now not going to work on that one. If I ever get this one done, maybe I'll consider it, but I am like not even really done it. Well, I don't even think I've technically finished the first page, although I've gone over and done more on the other pages. So here's where I am. And I did go and I basically worked on the border and just put in two of those red flowers and the line that sort of goes across. So not very exciting, but needs to be done. And I like sort of doing the border before I get to the stuff on the inside. It just, like I know that peacock is one stitch off, which is fine. It doesn't matter, except I don't want to use it to count off of. So it's hard to make, if I, on the flowers, it is very, at least as far as I can tell, very geometrical. Maybe she's done something funky later, but right now it's, so I sort of know like this flower has to match up, like the bottom of this flower has to match up. And if that doesn't work, then I've made a mistake somewhere. And I can go back early and find the mistake if I need to. I mean, I could fudge it too, but because I'm sort of using the border as a good way to count things off of, I don't want to do that. And again, with these sort of floating elements, if they're one stitch off, one way or the other, you can easily work around it. I just want to make sure that like when I get the quote in and stuff like that, that makes sense where it is. Okay. That was all my finish of my May stitching, and now I'm going to jump into June. So June, for Grand Stitchery, they have a designer focus of the month, and for June, that was Bella Filipina. And I had actually never, like this is the first Bella Filipina I ever started, and I only started this one in May, and I started because I knew I wanted to work more on it in June. So this is called The Golden Voice. So obviously it's Ariel from, oh my goodness. Anyhow, I've forgotten what it's called because I don't really watch Disney films, but I do love all of these Disney patterns that he has done. I've got, Snow White and Alice, and Alice in Wonderland and Jasmine and a few others. So I love them all. I do one day want to stitch them all, but got to start somewhere. So that's where I am. My fabric is a little bit darker than what is there, but I love the fabric choice. This is called Black Ice. It's from Bestitch Me. This is a 28 count linen. And let me show you what I actually stitched. So I showed this last month as a new start, and basically, and it's really not showing up on camera, but it does show up in real life. One of the things I was waiting for was that sort of purple. You can see the sparkle there. It calls for Krynic. I got a Petite Treasure Braid and did that. And that whole sort of lattice work going down in the archway and going down, it's just, the bones of it is done with that. So I really wanted to make sure I got that. So I put in quite a few stitches using that. And this was a lot of fun. Enjoyed working on it. I guess what's the point of working on something if you're not enjoying it? So, okay. And then my next one is the stitch along I am doing with a group of people. And let me pull up the picture here. It was originally a mystery stitch along from Chatelaine, probably more than a decade ago. So it's Summer Garden. And I think it's like Mystery 18. So that's what the whole thing will look like. And there is a stitch along that is being hosted on Facebook. And theoretically, like I think there's 6 parts to this, according as Martina from Chatelaine released it. there are now, but they've broken into 12. I'm not anywhere close. There are some people who've kept up, and a lot of, and people who've started but not done much, people who have not been able to start yet. So progress is progress. So this is on 28 count Vinca from Oakland Studio. Get this in the right way. And so basically I had done the center mandala already. Let me get that straight for you, high enough for you. So what I did this time, those like grains of wheat, or I'm not entirely sure what they're, I think that's actually what she calls them, wheat. And it's not straight. I folded my fabric funky, and trying to get it straight on the camera is a little bit hard. Is that better? Yes, that's better. So I did that. There's also that sort of pale stitching in the middle. I did some specialty stitches, but not many. So most of this is cross stitch that I did, but I did some dense road stitches. There are some long stitches. There are some diamond eyelets that I did. I spent a lot of time trying to interpret instructions, reaching out for help for people who have done this pattern already. It's not the best instructions, and people have helped me, and I still don't understand everything that was said. And not because the people who helped me, they were great, but like, where do certain stitches go and all of that. So I will take some time to figure out. In some cases, like, she doesn't tell you what color things are. She's like, do the flower buds with this kind of stitch. Well, that's great, but you didn't tell me what color the flower buds should be, or there was something in there in particular which I'm like, or there's like what they call the sheath stitch, which looks relatively simple. Fun. I've never done one before, but it doesn't look hard to do. But then it doesn't say what color. And then I spent a lot of time I spent so long trying to figure out where in the pattern they go, that when I went and asked a bunch of questions, I forgot to say, and by the way, what color are they supposed to be? So I am going to a chatelaine retreat this month, and so there will be lots of experts there. So I will be able to ask all my questions then. May not get answers, but I'll be able to ask my questions. Okay. And then the next piece the next piece I'm showing you was one of my Whip Go drawers for June. So this is Disagree from Rebel Stitcher, and it says, I'm going to have a hard time reading this, but it says, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my impression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. So I love this pattern. It was a market release in 2025, and I had to pre-order it because I wanted to make sure I got my hands on it. And having said that, of course, I haven't done nearly as much as I would like to on it. This is done on a 32 count linen from Fabrics by Stephanie, Nantucket Sky. And I am doing it in 2 colors of sulky. So I am doing all the Quaker motifs in a highly variegated floss. It's got orange and purple and blue and gray in it. And then I am doing the words in this purple. So basically this time what I did was I maybe had a teeny corner done on this motif. And I did finish the motif, and that was probably about 500 stitches or so that I needed to do, even a little bit more. And then I just had a little bit more stitching time, so I just went down and put in a few more letters. I think I put in the ND and then stitch, and it's not even like the full L. My floss ran out, and then my stitching time ran out. So love this one. I love the sentiment. It's simple, and while like size-wise it is quite large, there is a huge amount of empty space in there, so it doesn't take that long. And that motif I did at the top is one of the largest motifs in the pattern. Okay, and the next one I want to show you, this is Stars Bright from Lindy Stitches. This is my oldest non-full coverage whip. For those who are not familiar with it, here is the image. And so we would be together and have our books, and at night be warm in our bed together with the windows open and the stars bright. So this one languished because it was my first piece on linen, and I just wasn't really sure what I was doing. So I made a lot of mistakes. So this time I did, and so my goal is I would love to finish, well, you know, if the creek don't rise, and you really want to see the front, then I would like to finish it this year. And I'm over halfway now. So this time I didn't get as much stitching time. One of my challenge groups did for the Trans Pride flag. We had to stitch each of the colors. So I thought, great, I'll start with white. Did a bunch of white. Realized white is not in the Trans Pride flag. Oops. So anyhow, it brought me, so I made a lot of the boxes over. And then when I realized white was not one of the colors, I did a couple of quilt squares and started others. I think next time I can get the whole thing in the Q-snap, the whole remaining part in the Q-snap. And so, because I have an 8.5 by 11, and I really would like to finish the white one to make sure that everything matches up, but also just so that I don't have to, it makes the counting much easier within the quilt squares. If I have color left on my needle, I can go find the next appropriate quilt square to pull it in. Because this was one of my first using specialty flosses, I bought the called for. If I were doing this today, I probably just would have pulled from stash. So this was definitely a great learning piece. And this is done on a 32 count linen from Picture This Plus. I believe the color is mint. The tag has long since been separated from the project. Okay, and then one of my Whipco draws, and one of my pieces I'm trying to get about 2,000 stitches on this year, is Water Goddess from Joan Elliott. Just love, these are like my colors, blues and purples and teals and greens. And I am doing this on a printed fabric, 32 count, even weave. I have no idea what the color name is. It's Fabric Flare, that I know, but the color I don't. All right. Oops. It's a lovely light blue. All right, and so what I'm getting into now, I'm going to start telling you, so for the Trans Pride flag, what I used each of the projects for. So this got a little bit over 1,000 stitches, and I used it both because it was either stitched with the thread color or your fabric could be that color. So I did this both for the light blue / turquoise, and I decided let's take our medicine, and I did 500 stitches here, that's the crescent of the moon. And the reason why I was taking my medicine was it's all Kreinik, and that's not even halfway done with the moon. I got a lot more to do on that. But then also I did 500 stitches of purple on this. So sort of this whole sort of what looks kind of like a U shape, and then I came down and did some more here. So I then got to move on to some of the beautiful colors, as well as, getting into the meat of that dress. That's actually, I think, the sash, but it's still lovely, lovely piece. Okay, oops, let me put the pattern back in here. I don't want it to get separated. So I used to just throw everything on the floor and put it all back together, and I've decided I need to make cleanup, be kinder to myself. So thank you for bearing with me. All right, so then the next one I worked on was another fancy person, and this is Titania from Mirabilia. So I won this in a giveaway years ago as a kit. So I'm using all the kit. Well, I'm using the kit fabric. The kit was horribly made, and it, like the floss cards they were on, the stuff was just regular paper. So as soon as you tried to pull anything off, the paper ripped. So that just went into my master set, and I'm pulling from my master set. So anyhow, I needed some yellow stitches, and so I sort of worked over here in sort of her wing. And this is a 32 count linen. I don't know the exact name. I'm so witch linen, I'm sure. So there's what I did. Pull back, you can see I've done quite a bit of this one already. But going in and working all of that 676 in there. This was not 500 stitches. I had worked on another piece which I thought was going to be my yellow piece and realized I didn't have 500 stitches in that. So I put in probably about 300 stitches in this. So it wasn't a huge amount that I did on it, but progress is progress. All right, and then so Simple Pleasures. This is the piece that I thought I could get a lot of, like, knock out 2 of my colors, and it was for full coverage fanatics. There was something with a ball, and this has a ball of yarn in it. But I am up here in the upper right hand corner, and as you can see, there's not a lot of yellow and darker. And I was thinking, okay, because I'm also can do some in the hay here, or the straw, and no, the yellow colors I had already done. And I also use this for green, but also did not manage to hit, I think I only could get 400 green in the area where I was working. So, and the colors that I used, so this is the part that I worked in over here. I put in about 400 of, I can't remember if it was 934 or 936, but that very dark green, which is there, and you can see it sort of going down. And then some 676, and I can't remember the other color. I did put a little bit of yellow into that sort of hanging lantern as well. So overall, love the image of this. It just reminds me so much of my husband. Not that we're mice, and not that I knit, but just the 2 of us. We spend our evenings together. I'm stitching. We're watching TV together. We're just enjoying each other's company. So that's where I am with Simple Pleasures. And that's probably about 16%, and I got about 1,000 stitches in it this month. It will come back out again because it is one of my 2,000 stitch pieces, so about halfway done. And then because I didn't have enough green, I moved on to another piece where I knew getting green wasn't going to be an issue, and it also meant that I could knock off several colors as well. So I need to find the cover of this, and it's being elusive. Everything in here is, oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm sure all of you are familiar with this. This is Saga from Long Dog Samplers. Andrew, the running stitcher, is making this a focus piece, and so he's doing it his Long Dog Leap Day Sal. And so he pulls it out in almost every video, and it's gorgeous and stunning, and I love it. I'm not anywhere close to where he is. I think I'm about 3%. I'm still up in this top row up here. And I am doing this with 4 colors. And so by doing that, I was able not only to finish off my green, but I also hit the orange and the dark blue as well. So here's where I am. So put in about 100 green stitches over here. So this block, actually none of my blocks are done. Even that purple one isn't quite done. But I put in 100 or so stitches in this green block. Finished off the lion, or mostly finished off the lion. He's actually standing on top of a chair that is toppled over, so it's hard to tell because the chair is basically what's not finished. Maybe a little bit of his legs too. And then I worked on the dark blue, just in sort of the archway, the border or whatever. That's DMC 939. And I think the green is 562, and honestly I cannot remember exactly what the orange is right now, but that is, and so then I put in 500 stitches of orange. Such a fun pattern to work on. I do struggle a little bit at times to make sure that where the sort of arches are versus the actual motifs, because they do blend into each other. So it's not hard, you just have to sort of plan it, and because I'm on Pattern Keeper, so it's a little bit harder to mark because everything is the same color, so I just have to be a little bit aware when I'm working on the archway and the columns to make sure where I am. And this is a 20 count Lugana, so I'm doing 1/1, and it is on Blueberry Milkshake from Grace Notes fabric. Okay, and let's see the next piece, Queen of Freedom. This is supposed to be a focus piece that I put 3 days of stitching on every month. Not trying to finish it, just trying to enjoy it this year. But I have not been very good with it. And so I didn't put any stitches in May, and I only got a day, and when I say a day, it wasn't even a full day. And this is Queen of Freedom from Mirabilia. So this, I believe she designed it initially in 2002. I purchased this from secondary market a couple of years ago, and now, of course, it was re-released, although in very limited numbers, but I'd already started it, so, and let me show you where I am. And this is done on a 32 count Fabrics by Stephanie Nimue, and I did this because I needed some red, and so I basically just pulled one of the stripes. Actually, yeah, so this stripe, this big thick one, that's what I did. And that wasn't even 500 stitches. It was just, I had another piece I worked on where I didn't even come close to the 500. And so I just said, fine, I will. I'm looking through and I'm like, just pull out Queen of Freedom. And I enjoy working on this, but I keep saying I need to work. I'm doing the skim 1/1, and I really want to keep going with that. And so to leave the fun dress and flag for the second half. But I said, just pull it out and do it. You want to do it, just do it. I have plenty of other projects with red between holiday pieces and patriotic pieces, but I said, do this, at least get one day, because you're not coming close to hitting any of the goals. And then the other piece that I did to get more red for the flag, and this was actually the one I started with. So this is Mystic Stitch Tug of War. Mystic Stitch is no longer operational. This pattern, I believe, the Cross Stitch Studio had it. Obviously, the company itself has closed, but their patterns can be purchased through Pain Free Crafts. I don't know if they have this exact one. It is cropped, and like I can't. This is a paper pattern, and it drives me nuts. But because I've started it, I'm not going to restart it and buy a new pattern because the charting wouldn't match. So, but here is where I am. So I put about 1,000 stitches in it. This is also another piece that I have that I'm trying to get 2,000 stitches in. So I started off and I'm working down it here. I decided to stop going across, and because this is one of these pieces I'm not sure I will ever get done because it does take so long to stitch on it. But I enjoy it when I do stitch on it. But it's probably, I can, like on my other full coverages, especially the ones that I'm doing single strand, I can probably get 200, 250 stitches an hour. Whereas this one, I am lucky if I get 100 stitches in it, just between the confetti and going back between the paper pattern and all of that. So anyhow, I put in the red because I originally saw there was a red block on the quilt, and I said, oh, that will give me 500 stitches. And then when, of course, I look at the colors, it's more plum. So I think the block itself will look red when I'm done. So I don't even remember what shades, what that is, but there's a couple shades of red there, and it wasn't close enough. It gave me like 200 stitches, and I said, okay, just stop. So then I came over and worked on, so that most of that blue block was done. There were still some additional blue stitches I put in, and they're still missing some, but I did a lot of that sort of tan colored, and as well as some of the colors over here. And I sort of alternate, again, because this is so confetti heavy. So basically, on the one hand, I'm using the typewriter method, block by block, going across. So I'll pick a symbol, and I will do that color wherever that goes until I more or less finish it on the page, if I can find it. And then I will pick a color that is more prevalent. So that's sort of what I did. And this is an 18 count Ada. Again, it's a project I like, but it is slow going. So it just sort of comes out when it comes out. No, I'm not one of these people who says, this is, every year I'm going to finish the schedule I'm going to finish my full coverages. They will get done when they get done. I do try and finish one every year. We'll see if that changes, but right now. All right, and so then the next one is one of my smaller pieces, and I needed pink, so I use this for pink. Let me see if I can find the image. I messed up and forgot to open it up ahead of time. It's hiding. My apologies. There it is. All right, so this is the Snuggle is Real. That cute little kitty that was falling asleep or sleeping in the slipper. And so this is from Just Cross Stitch 2023. I don't remember exactly which issue it is. So here's where I am. And I'm actually going to work on this today, which is why it's in the Q-Snap. My goal is to finish it this month. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get into plans. But basically, so I obviously focused because I needed pink there. I did more than 500 stitches on this. But I made sure the first 500 were pink. And then after that, it got a little bit of a quiet time, coming down. But literally, so I have to obviously finish the slipper here. And then there's the sole of the slipper. This part is quite slow simply because it is quite confetti heavy to give it the texture, but the sole will go quickly because it's a lot of straight lines, so it's relatively easy to work on. Okay, and then the last piece I have to show you, if you watch me with any regularity, you probably know what it is, and it is Evening Romance, charted by Artisy, artwork by Mark, I'm going to say Keithley, I'm not sure entirely. Let's see if I can pull it out. Keithley. And the reason why I always get a little bit confused by this is my husband, the street that he lived on in his childhood, and his parents lived in that house until they passed away. So I visited it many times, and it's K-E something with an E, like E at the end. So I always get the two confused. Anyhow, this is Evening Romance. Beautiful, beautiful scene. This is the full coverage that I'm trying to finish this year, and I'm fully on track. I should finish it, I think, by September is what I've calculated. And this is done on 18 count Ada. I think I'm like at 81 or 82% right now. So there is the whole thing. And this month, I'm going to fold it so I can show you a little bit more about what I worked on. Okay, so, and straighten it up. So I was mostly done with that cardinal, still had a couple colors, and then basically I am working this page by page. It is in Pattern Keeper. So roughly page by page, I'll pick a color on that page, and that stitching session I will either finish off that color, or if I don't finish it, I'll put it back, and then the next time I'll pick up a different color. I'm not I'm not like doing the whole right now about this color is the most. It's too complicated to do if you have parts that you can't get to. But anyhow, it gives me a good way. And then I didn't quite finish this page. I don't know, like you can see up in here and stuff, things that not quite done, but I really want to make sure that I don't have any rogue stitches, so that when I do the Q-Snap move, because I like to pull the whole thing out so I can show you and give it a little bit rest out of the Q-Snaps, because I finished this probably I did about 4,000 stitches, and I wanted to make sure that the stitches that I completed, that I could move the Q-Snap and only have to move it once, because I do use this for in semi-sane, my focus of the month, and so I don't want to have to keep moving the Q-Snap. I could if I wanted to, but that's where I am. So really nice, and I'm just going to hold the whole thing out again. It just looks, in my opinion, really, really good. You can up close you can't see what they are, but then you see sort of those, whether they're stones or little land masses or something in the river with snow on top of them, and that like that little evergreen tree and stuff. It just looks so fabulous. Um, I think Artisy did a great job charting this. And I say this every time, but with Artisy patterns, what makes them really good is that they are smaller than a lot of the full coverage companies. So this is, I think, 64,000 stitches. So I'm not saying it's a small pattern. It definitely is not, but it's not the hundreds of thousands of stitches that a Haid might be. Okay, so that is all of my stitching from the end of May and all of June. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, I didn't have a lot of, had a week where I probably got under 1,000 stitches, and that for the entire week because I was traveling. So I'm only going to show you one of my boards because I didn't bother to update the other board. Here's my board though, where I track the projects that I am trying to get 2,000 stitches on. And this list I came up for a game, Fandom Stitching Central, where you're trying to get 2,026 stitches on 26 projects. So you didn't have to pick all of those projects at the beginning of the year. You could just declare them as you went along. But because I really wanted to sort of, this gives me goals, I chose my projects up front. There are a few you can see there, like Anzac and Morning Glory Manor, Midnight Vigil. There are a few that have not been touched. There is one, you can see Holland Springtime Mandala right there. That is a chatelaine, and that will get worked on this month. So I'm hoping to get 2,000 stitches on it and complete that. But you can see there, I've only completed 9 of 26 goals, and we are halfway through the year. Now, theoretically, that should be 13. Now, I did do some very rough math. I do have over, like when I start adding up, 1,000 stitches for each of those that are undone. If I were to add those together, that is 14 projects. So I have done over half of the stitches required to get there. But the reality is my stitching is uneven. Evening Romance is getting, thousands and thousands every month, as well as some of my focus projects are on here and they've been completed. So I need to sort of, I think, step it up and be a little bit more deliberate about choices of what I'm working on. I have no regrets about everything I've worked on, but I really do want to push to get these done, just for my own personal goal. There's no prize in the group. There's nothing like that. I just want to get it done. So that's where I am. My other board, as I got to still figure things out, quite frankly, for what I'm doing for July. So I haven't bothered to update it. And I think the last time I updated it was May, so I can't even show you what I did in June. All right, so my plans for July, in Fandom Stitching Central, it is, in May, they had us start all the things, and this month it's finish all the things. Well, I am not going to finish nearly as many things as I started, but I do have 2 finishes I would like to do. I didn't pull out what I'm working on, but Snuggle is Real, which I showed you, which is the kitty in the slipper. I really want to finish that this month, so that will be a big focus of mine. And then I also have one of the birds from the Bird Crush Club that I really want to get finished. So I'll have my goal to come back to you is with 2 finishes. I also have my 2 Whip Go pieces, which I want to give at least a day to each of them. One of them is a Year of Hawkhorn Hollow, and the other is a Kathy Barrick piece called Brownfish Owl that I started a couple years ago with Beth the Steadfast Stitcher. I think I got that mostly right. Steadfast Stitcher. Okay. Anyhow, Beth, who's wonderful. Beth has even more whips than I do. And so I know she hasn't really been able to focus on it the way she would like to. Quite frankly, I haven't focused on it as much as I would like to either, but so I'm happy it got pulled as a Whip Go piece, and I will work on it for at least a day. I decided to make it a memory piece for my grandmother, and so it's something I would like to get done because it has personal meaning for me. So other than that, my focus pieces, and I have the Chatelaine retreat. I also have a little bit of other travel plans, so we'll see what I can get done. Okay, so that is all about what I've stitched and some of my stitching plans. I'm going to move on to a few small purchases. So as I mentioned, Grand Stitchery, The focus designer of the month was Bella Filipina, and what they do for the focus designer is they put them all on sale. I knew I needed the Kreinik or Petite Treasure Braid for the Golden Voice, and so I then decided, well, it's on sale. Love this piece. This is Hummingbird Pixie, so I purchased this one. No plans to start it, but loved it. And then the other one that I have seen around a lot, and I said I need to get it. This is Banner of Benevolence. I just really like the message on this from Silver Creek Samplers, and I wanted to support it. The other, and then obviously I got some threads with when I ordered from Grand Stitcher. The other thing, my very kind brother gave me a gift certificate for Christmas to European Cross Stitch, and I held on to it until April because they do a sale every April. And so I got V-packs, and neither one of these are complete because one is very expensive, and the gift certificate certainly didn't cover all of it, but it covered a chunk of it, and I decided just slowly. So I got, but I will say, Glorianas are becoming more available faster. Like it used to be, if you could get lucky and find the Gloriana you needed, but if you were trying to like special order it, it could take 6 months to a year to get it. And they've just been able to get their production, which got derailed during the pandemic. They finally have been able to sort of catch up. And so I ordered this in early April and got it mid-June, so 2.5 months, which I don't think is bad given there's so much hand packing that goes along with an order from European Cross Stitch. So the two things I got. One, I got the beads and the Glorianas for White Nights in St. Petersburg. I was very kindly gifted the pattern and some of the flosses for this last year at the Shadowland Retreat. Someone had picked up, I think she had picked up the actual pattern at whether it was a thrift store or a garage sale or something, and she had started kitting it up, and then I think she just realized how big the thing was, and it wasn't something that she was going to work on, even though she is working on other big chatelaines, but maybe it just wasn't her favorite one. So she kindly gifted everything to me, and so I've slowly been collecting the pieces that I was missing. And I started like writing it all down and thinking, okay, can I go here and there? And then I'm like, I knew there were no beads, and I knew there were no Gloriana, so I'm like, okay, you can get your one off here or there, but at least save yourself a little bit of angst and just get it all from European Cross Stitch. And then the other one that I got, and I'd have to go through and see, I know it's Gloriana and beads, but there might be some other specialty flosses in there too, is for Sparkling Peacock. And I saw a version of this at the retreat. No, right. I saw someone a fully stitched piece at the retreat last year, and it was stunning. And so I purchased the pattern last year, but I have 2 chatelaines on the go, and they're not quick stitches. So but I said, let me get this. And part of the reason why I wanted some of these as well is just so that when I go to the retreat, I can start laying them on fabrics and seeing what I think might work. So, all right. So that is, sorry about that. Just got a text message. That is all I have to show you related to cross stitch. I want to talk a little bit about what I've been reading because I read probably one of the best books that I have read all year. It was an audiobook, so I don't have the book to show you. It was Whistler from Ann Patchett. This is a new release this year, and it's hard to say exactly what this book is about because it's much more character development than it is plot. So if you're looking, if you love fast-paced books, this isn't for you. But basically, this is a woman, I think she's in her early to mid-50s, and she's married to a man who's older than her, like 15, 17 years older than her. So they are retired, but he's got to go on a trip to clean out his childhood home. His mother had passed away well before all this, but so they decide to take a day. They live outside of New York City, and they take a day in the city, and they're just going to enjoy what the city has to offer. So while they're walking through a museum, this man, an older man, starts following them, and like it's obvious that like it's not in their mind, he is actually following them. So long story short, that is her former stepfather. So a man who was in her life, married to her mother, when she was in elementary school. So like, knew him when they were dating, and then they were married only for about a year. So like 7, 8, 9, around that time frame. Um, and he was a good man. This is not some sad story like that. But that basically something happens and the mom just says, boom, we're done. We're getting divorced. And that was the end of that. And so she never saw him again. And so now this is really about them sort of rekindling their relationship. And it really is about that relationship and then the relationship she has with her husband. It does go back and the incident that sort of precipitated, like there was a car accident, you sort of go back and you learn about really what happened and a lot of this. And you learn, but it's just, you're learning a lot about what happened and their relationship and her relationship with her mother and her sister and her husband. And it's just a lot of character development. And it's hard to say, like, this is really like, you know, yes, the story moves on, but it was so beautifully written. And Ann Patchett, that's kind of how she is. She has a lot of books where not a lot happens, but they're just very engaging. The only thing I will say is I read this I did it as an audiobook, and I didn't love it as an audiobook. Ann Patchett has had some amazing narrators: Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep, Hope Davis, and so really, really good actors reading her stuff. And she chose to do this one herself. And I don't know if it's because this one is very personal to her, or if there was some other reason why. Uh, I don't really think it was a cost thing because she's a successful author, so she could afford, even if she doesn't have like the most famous actor doing it, there's a lot of great audiobook narrators out there. For whatever reason, she chose to do it herself. And I don't want to say she was bad, but she wasn't good. And so there were just parts of it where, she's trying to put emotion into it and she just didn't hit the right notes. But I would say, even despite that, I still absolutely loved this book. So if you're looking for something that's more of a, I don't want to say character portrait, but just about personal relationships and nothing, no one is horrible to anyone else. She doesn't have the best relationship with her mother, but it's not like a horrible relationship. She was, her mom was a single mom doing the best with two young girls, doing the best that she could. Oops. So anyhow, that's Whistler. So that's the book I highly, highly recommend. So, all right. So, and now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my life, just because I had such a great trip. So my husband and I celebrated 23 years of marriage in June, mid-June. And we always, rather than giving each other stuff, we like to sort of go on trips. And so for this trip, we went to Belfast in Northern Ireland. Neither one of us had ever been there. My husband had been to the Republic of Ireland when he was a young man, well before I ever showed up on the scene. I've never been to the Republic of Ireland either, but we really wanted to go. And I sort of jokingly say, part of the reason why I wanted to go was because I can. And that, on the one hand, sounds very arrogant, but what I mean is that I'm old enough that I grew up hearing on the news about the Troubles and all of the sectarian strife that was happening in Northern Ireland, and it was not a safe place to go as a tourist. And so being able to go now when things are peaceful and Belfast and Northern Ireland are flourishing, it's something, it just means something to me, to see that peace is possible and advancement is possible, that there is a way to overcome conflict and move forward. And so part of me really, really wanted to go for that. And then, but the other part of me that wanted to go was, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, and a lot of Game of Thrones was filmed there. Both, like, there was the studio where they filmed a lot of it, and also a lot of the on location. Now, certainly not all of the on location. Some of it was filmed in places like southern Spain and Croatia and Iceland, but a lot of it was done in Northern Ireland, and it just, the countryside and the backdrops they have were just so amazing. So basically, when we flew in, I'm not going to show you a ton of pictures. If you really, really, really want to see pictures, just send me a message and I'm happy to show you where I plopped them all. But basically, we went, so we did go, they took one of the studios and they made it into a museum. It is about a half hour outside of Belfast, but there's just a bus from the center of town. and you take the bus and it drops you off there, and then you get the bus back. It's all very civilized. And you get to see a lot, learn about a lot about how they made things. And, so it's not so much focused on the actors as it is on the technical side. So the costumes and the props and um, storytelling and just all of that. And it was really good museum. We were still a little bit jet lagged, so and the way the bus schedule worked, we probably had more time there than we wanted, but it was still good. We enjoyed it, and then we on two separate days booked private tours with a guy who does this kind of thing. Now we were not into let's put on costumes and props and have our picture taken like that, but he did a really good balance of showing us like where things were filmed and how things were filmed. So you like go to a beach and it was a beach in a scene, or a harbor that just looked like a really innocent harbor, little sweet harbor where, in a fishing village, and how that harbor was transformed into like the harbor at the Iron Islands, for example. So we just had, and then we also went and saw things that had nothing to, if you're, went to saw the Giant's Causeway and other things that had nothing to do with the filming. But there are things when you go to Northern Ireland, you're going to go see them. So we did that. So that was a couple of days we had. We always stayed in Belfast, but we did that. And then we went to the Titanic Museum. We did one of those like hop on, hop off buses that takes you around, and just so you can sort of see more of it. We chose not to do one of the that they call the peace tours, which looked back at the Troubles. My husband felt very strongly that we should be looking forward. But the bus that took us around did go through what they call the peace gates, which they still to this day, and the peace accords were in 1998, they still lock the gates every night in parts of the city. And not because there is violence there, but so I don't know if this is part of the agreements or it's a better safe than sorry, but they still do it every night, which was sort of a bit shocking. And the reality is there are large immigrant populations living in a lot of these areas. And as the bus recording basically said, it's how to put it, each side thought the other side had more, or better, when the reality is both sides had it really badly. And that sort of was very true, that both sides, it was 70s in particular was a time of really economic difficulties in Northern Ireland. And they, and so, yes, the people who were upset didn't have much, but the people they were angry at didn't have much either. And it's much more, lots of things going on. But anyhow, but we had a great, great time. I highly recommend a trip to Northern Ireland. We did do it with a private tour guide, which can be a bit spendy, but that's the way we chose to do it because it could take us to a lot of places that a regular tour bus can't go to. But if that's not your thing, or you're not into Game of Thrones, there are plenty of like tour companies that just will do day trips out of Belfast and take you to the Giant's Causeway and the Rope Bridge and all sorts of other places that you want to go see. And highly, highly recommend Northern Ireland. I would love to go back and actually see the Republic of Ireland. We did fly into Dublin because that was the best way, less than a 2-hour drive from Dublin Airport to the center of Belfast. We did not drive ourselves. We were driven, but it was for us. It was better than trying to go through Heathrow and negotiate an airport that way. So we had a great, great time, and I am so glad I did that. So coming up this month, as I mentioned, I am doing the Chatelaine retreat, which is at the very end of July. I also do have to go to California. I have a celebration of life. It's my mom's twin sister who passed away a few months ago, so we are going to that. And a lot of my family will be there. So I'm going, and my mom can travel by herself, but she prefers not to. So I'm taking her, but because of like we're even sharing a suite, so a lot of my personal time that I might have like as downtime, I'm not going to have as much because we'll be sitting and visiting, as my mother likes. Even though I live in the same town as her, but she likes to talk a lot. I like to talk too, so I'm not criticizing, but it does mean that I probably will have for those few days less stitching time. And obviously, I'm going to see quite a few of my cousins and my uncles and people like that. So my mom is unfortunately, the last sibling in her family. She had another sister as well who passed away. But it will be great to see a lot of my family. That side of my family, we all are very close, even though we live all across the U.S., from Florida to Missouri to California, different places in California, Virginia, D.C., and Baltimore, and places like that. The family is very, very dispersed, but we do all really get along, and it's great when we have a chance to get together, even though it's not for the happiest of occasions this time. All right, so that is all I'm going to chat about today. I probably chatted long enough if you made it this far. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to spend some time with me and to see my stitching and sharing this journey with me. So happy stitching, everyone. Bye.